So 1, 2, 3. Arrest McChrystal. Troops out now. 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 Arrest McChrystal. Troops out now.
And your name, sir?
I'm Brian Becker. I'm the National Coordinator of the Answer Coalition.
Now, Brian, I understand that the Answer Coalition initiated this demonstration tonight.
That's right. When we heard that Stanley McChrystal was speaking here in Baltimore, we thought it was important for people in this area to say that rather than honoring McChrystal, treating him like an esteemed guest, he should be greeted for what he is, a war criminal, for his acts as part of the Joint Special Operations Command in charge of the war in Afghanistan. So we're here today to say that McChrystal should in fact be arrested for war crimes, which is true. If there was justice, he would be arrested. But also to demand an end to the war in Afghanistan. The American people clearly, as you can see by the recent polls, have overwhelmingly opposed the war. They don't understand it, they don't know what it's about, they want it to end. And we're representing, in that sense, the majority sentiment in the country.
And on top of all that, you just had that recent incident where an American soldier went off the deep end and may have killed 16, 17 innocent civilians.
Right, I mean, that was a shocking incident, something like the My Lai massacre in Vietnam. And as we learned from My Lai, while William Calley was the one who pulled the trigger, he was the one who led the massacre, his actions were condoned by the superiors. It was a war against an entire people in Vietnam. Children could be the enemy. Their moms could be the enemy. Their fathers could be the enemy. In fact, the entire people could be the enemy because the entire people did not want to live under foreign occupation. So the logic of the American military operation is minimize U.S. casualties because they create backlash at home. So it's all right if there's a question to shoot first and ask questions later. And that creates a mentality, a racist mentality, where the Afghan people themselves become not the force to be liberated, but the actual enemies. And I think that's what we're seeing over and over and over again in Afghanistan. This incident, as awful as it was not an exception.
Now, this guy McChrystal was running some kind of black ops operation for a number of years that did a lot of damage. Is that right?
Indeed. I mean, Stanley McChrystal, they give it euphemistic names in the Pentagon, Joint Special Operations Command. Anywhere else it's known as what it really is. It's a death squad operation. Targeted assassinations carried out in the middle of the night. There's no accountability. People from the United States military are given a license to kill. And Stanley McChrystal made that into an art form. He is a mass killer. And it's odd, isn't it, that in the United States, McChrystal, who was fired for insubordination, then goes to places like Baltimore, becomes an esteemed speaker in the Speaker's Bureau. And you have the creme de la creme from Baltimore coming to hear him as if he's the font of knowledge, witnessing and listening to this sage, when in fact he should be in the dock for war crimes for being the leader of a death squad operation in Afghanistan and before that in Iraq.
Are there any chances, I know that Spain, for one country, there have been judges there that have brought forth charges against some of the individuals involved in Iraq and Afghanistan. Is there any chance he'll be charged?
Well, he should be charged, and yes, there is a chance, because we can see that with the tenacity of people who are challenging and demanding accountability for others who have committed crimes against humanity, like, for instance, Augusto Pinochet, the dictator of Chile. It took years, in fact, it took more than a decade, but ultimately a foreign court, a court in Spain, indicted, and then he was ultimately arrested in London for crimes committed in Chile against political prisoners, against the left, the thousands who were massacred and imprisoned and tortured and then executed. So there is an international movement of accountability. There is an international movement to hold these war crimes accountable. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy, because the United States courts are designed not for justice, but to shield the criminals. The criminals in this case being people like McChrystal or his paymasters, George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, who are running around the country, Cheney less so nowadays, but running around the country selling books, making lots of money, being treated honorifically instead of what they should be treated as war criminals.
Afghanistan has never
Anything else,
committed an
Brian?
act of aggression.
That's it. We want the U.S. troops out of Afghanistan.
So what does that mean?
Thanks so much.
The United States.
I'm Max Obashevsky, and I'm with the Pledge of Resistance Baltimore.
What is the story in General Stanley McChrystal? He's speaking here tonight at the Marathon, and there's a protest across the street. What's it all about, Max?
Well, some of us believe that Stanley McChrystal, because of involvement in the war in Afghanistan, is an alleged war criminal. I believe in due process, so I won't say that he is a war criminal because he hasn't been tried yet, but he should be tried. My sign says jail Stanley McChrystal and free Bradley Manning. We have somebody that's not been involved in killing anybody. It's been sitting in jail now for, I don't know, 800 days or so he's been in jail. This guy's going around, and he's allegedly making $60,000 a year. Stanley McChrystal was fired because of something he said to a reporter, and he claimed it was supposedly off limits. But what we are here principally because is he was the head of JSOC. And this is the special operations. It's again a euphemism. Special operations. Well, what is special operations? Well, it's killing. It's usually done at night. It's usually done without any taking of prisoners. It's a situation where you're getting quote unquote intelligence that someone is a terrorist. In whose eyes? We know that many of the people that were put in Guantanamo, for example, well over 700, most of them have been released without charge because there was a bounty put on them, or somebody wanted the gentleman's wife, so he turned them in to collect some money from the U.S. government. And this special operations command that McChrystal was involved in is erupting around the world. There's a base going in Australia right now. Who knows what's that all about? I have a suspicion it's targeting China. That's right. That's why there's a base in our allies' country, Australia. I'm going to guess possibly that there's a secret operations unit that's going to be assigned to that base. We know of special operation bases in Somalia and other places in Asia and so on. And this is just a proliferation of the warmongering that's going on. I protest WYPR because that's one of the co-sponsors of the speaker series, to bring in someone like Stanley McChrystal, who generally gets $60,000 for a speaking engagement. We're closing rec centers in Baltimore. The mayor can't balance the budget. The city council can't balance the budget. Why? Because the Pentagon, people like Stanley McChrystal, are getting all of this money sucked out for warmongering when we need this for infrastructure, for the schools. The Baltimore City, the schools are falling down in this city. The ACLU and other groups are working on this. The head of the schools, Mr. Alonzo, goes down to Annapolis and begs for more money. So that's why I'm here tonight.
Anything else, Max?
No, I've said what I needed to do, and I just wish there were more people joining us.
Thanks so much.
No problem.
I'm an organizer with the Answer Coalition.
And why, I understand the Answer Coalition initiated this demonstration. Can you sum up what it's about, Sarah?
Absolutely. As soon as we heard that Stanley McChrystal was going to be speaking in Baltimore, the Answer Coalition initiated a call for anti-war and social justice activists to come here to protest, because we know that Stanley McChrystal has the blood of thousands and thousands of Iraqi and Afghan people on his hands, and we believe he should be held accountable for that everywhere he goes. Since he was fired as the top commander in Afghanistan, Stanley McChrystal got a job at Yale. He started traveling around the country speaking. He routinely receives tens of thousands of dollars for his speaking engagements. But the truth is, this man is a war criminal. He has not been held accountable for his crimes. He should be jailed for his crimes rather than have people pay hundreds of dollars to hear him speak. We know very well who Stanley McChrystal is. We know the leadership role he played in the war in Afghanistan, which has torn the country apart, which has been responsible for the deaths of thousands of Afghan people, the destruction of their very society. And we know also that Stanley McChrystal has been involved in U.S. military covert operations all over the world. For 5 years, he headed Joint Special Operations Command, which coordinates these kind of covert black ops activities that are not as widely known, but which of course carry out death and destruction, not just in Afghanistan and Iraq, but all over the planet.
Have any charges been brought against him, sir, by any court, international tribunal, or is he being investigated?
I don't know of charges that have been brought against him. Of course, other Bush administration officials and others responsible have been charged in different some jurisdictions in other countries. In some states, they've brought charges, but I don't know of anything specifically about McChrystal.
Anything else?
Well, today we're joined, the Answer Coalition is joined by the American Iranian Friendship Committee, the World Can't Wait, the Pledge of Resistance Baltimore, March Forward, which is an anti-war veterans and service member organizations, many others who have come together from the DC, Baltimore, East Coast region to say that we don't want Stanley McChrystal in Baltimore, we don't want him speaking anywhere. We want him arrested for his crimes.
Now, sir, I'm just going to pan over a second here and show the audience. This is the Meyer Hall Stanley McChrystal will be speaking shortly. Is that right?
Yes. People are walking in right now to hear him speak. They've paid at least $100, if not hundreds of dollars for all of their tickets. And we want them to know that there's many people out here who oppose what McChrystal stands for.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Your name?
My name's Andrew Castro. I'm with the Answer Coalition.
And why are you here tonight, Andrew?
Well, we're out here tonight to send a message to Stanley McChrystal. We're in front of the Joseph Meyerhoff Symphony Hall, and McChrystal is inside speaking. And basically, General McChrystal, he was a top commander of U.S. NATO forces in Afghanistan, and he's lost his job and moved on to other things. But basically, we want to send him a message saying that he's a war criminal and that he should be arrested for war crimes and crimes against humanity. He shouldn't be speaking here at Joseph Meyerhoff Symphony Hall. I know he goes on many speaking engagements around the country because he has a contract with the group in Washington, D.C. that sets him up, and he gets around $60,000 per engagement, which is completely absurd. So we're here to say he shouldn't be here. He should be prosecuted, and we're going to challenge him. And we're also here to demand an end to the criminal war of Afghanistan.
Anything else, Andrew?
The only way we're going to end this war in Afghanistan, this war that becomes more criminal each and every day, the only way is if we keep organizing in the streets. If we look at the lessons from the Vietnam War, the only reason why the Vietnam War ended was because of mass resistance. And that's what it's going to take to end the Afghanistan war, to end the Iraqi war, to end every imperialist war that the United States government wages.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
Sure.
Your name?
I'm Heather Benno.
And Heather, why are you here tonight?
I'm here because Baltimore is hosting one of the grand war criminals of modern times. We can't allow I mean, if he were a Nazi, he would have already been prosecuted. But instead, he works for the U.S. government and he's free to give leadership lectures across the street and be paid for it. We say no. That's completely inappropriate. There are people starving on the streets of Baltimore, and we're going to stand here and we're going to fight until all the war criminals are brought to justice.
What exactly did he do? Was it in Afghanistan or Iraq? What did he do?
Well, Stanley McChrystal oversaw special ops in Iraq. That means overseeing the torture prisons.
Like Abu Ghraib.
Abu Ghraib, for example. That means buying off Iraqi people in order to fight their own and creating a situation where, unfortunately, people don't have access to any of the basic necessities of life, even though supposedly the troops have come out. That's what he did to the people of Iraq. He was responsible, not single-handedly, but as part of the U.S. war machine for perpetrating a massacre and, in fact, a genocide on the people of Iraq. Now then, what did he do in Afghanistan? He was sent to Afghanistan to oversee U.S. and NATO commands in the longest war in U.S. history. This is a war that's been going on since 2001 and that we're continuing every year fighting to stop, every day struggling against the continuing war machine. So, I mean, he symbolizes everything that I think most Americans stand against.
Anything else?
Just that I think that we can bring, not only, he's not the problem, he's part of the problem. And if we have a unified mass movement, if we're together and if we stay on the streets, not even Stanley McChrystal, not even the U.S. Special Forces can stop us. We're going to bring the troops home.
Thanks so much.
The lives of the Afghan people are being destroyed from U.S. bombs. According to Amnesty International, 500,000 Afghans have been displaced and 400 are losing their homes every day. Stan McChrystal is only one culprit. The Bush administration, the Obama administration are just as guilty for these war crimes. They should all be arrested and tried. So we're out here to say, arrest McChrystal! Troops out now! Arrest McChrystal! Troops out now!